You got the camera on me, huh?
I do.
Yo, what's up, Curtis? I don't know if I should stand or just sit. So this farmer comes to church on Sunday, and the pastor's standing outside the church. And when the farmer shows up, there's nobody else there. It's just the farmer and the pastor. And the pastor looks at him and says, "Well, what do you think we ought to do?" And the farmer says, "Well, if I went out to slaughter the hogs, and only one hog showed up, I'd still feed them." Preacher said, "All right, come on in." So he goes in, preacher gets up on the podium, and he preaches and he preaches and he preaches. I mean, he gives a hellfire damnation preach. And when he gets done, the preacher goes to the back of the church, standing by the door, and as the farmer comes out, the preacher's standing there and he's going, "Well, what'd you think?" And the farmer said, "Well, if I went out to feed the hogs and only one hog showed up, I wouldn't feed him a whole load." So it's important to understand your audience, the size of the room, how many people you have. So that's one message I would give everybody. The second thing is there's this art teacher that teaches people how to make clay pots. And it's a class, it's a semester long. And so what she does, she divides the class in half. And she tells this half of the class that your grade for the semester will be based on the weight of the pots that you make during the semester, the total weight. And she tells the other half of the class that your grade will be based on the aesthetics of the pots you make. In other words, how nice they look, what the design of them is. So throughout the semester, the people that are being judged on the weight, they're in there every day. At the beginning of class, they're staying late after class, they're coming through their free time, they're putting rocks in the clay, they're doing all this creative stuff to try and make them weigh as much as they possibly can. They keep making pots and making pots and making pots and weighing them. And the other group is in the library, and they're looking at art books, and they're studying other clay pots, and they're drawing out designs, and they go meet with an art teacher to draw out designs. And about 3 days before the final, they go in there and they make the pots based on all the designs. Who do you think got the A's? No,
No.
the ones that were graded on the weight of the pots. And that's because they practiced. They made the pots over and over and over. So by the time that they did their final work, their pots were perfect because they practiced. The other ones had everything down. They had the drawings down, they had everything down, but they didn't practice. And 3 days before they were going to be graded, they went in and made the pots, and they weren't great. So despite what anybody tells you here at NSA meetings or whatever, practice. When I first joined NSA a couple of years ago, I heard what I consider to be, and if this offends you on the camera, turn it off. 'Cause I don't really care.
Never.
You know, people tell you, "Well, I don't speak for free." Okay, well, you either won the lottery or you're a freaking idiot. Speak anywhere you can speak at any time and get to practice it. People only remember the last thing you did. People don't listen to you about you, they listen to you about them. So I wrote down, as we were going through this today, I wrote down 3 things. I wrote down logos. So logos is my words make sense from your point of view. People talk from their frame of reference and people hear from their frame of reference. If I talk from your frame of reference, I said this earlier, then you'll think I'm really smart. But if I talk from my frame of reference and you don't agree with me, then what kind of feeling do you have about me? So if one of your goals in giving your talk is to have impact, then talk from the frame of reference of the person that you're talking to. So if I was doing a sales training, I would tell you sell the problem, not the solution. Talk about the problem people have. We had someone that was up here talking about weight. Talk about the problem people have with being happy. We had someone up here talking about being mindful. Talk about the problem someone has when they're self-absorbed. talk about the problem, and then illustrate the solution in an example. The next thing I wrote down is ethos. Trust and credibility. Why should people listen to you? Most of you, when you got up here in the room, were listened to not because of the content of what you said, but who you are when you stood there. Now, in a lot of places, you're going to be introduced, right? So, right, you're going to be introduced. And that provides the credibility for you once you're introduced. But once you get on that stage, once you get in front of people, your credibility is going to come from the experience people have with you. So, for example, I had polio. When I do this, whenever I give a talk or a meeting, I say I had polio when I was a kid. That's why I'm limping when I walk. It's not because I was out drinking last night. Now, that didn't mean that I wouldn't be limping today because I was out drinking last night. I'm just not limping today because I was out drinking last night. The reason I do that is because when I'm in a room of 40 people or 1,000 people, when I walk out there, for the first 3.5 minutes at least, people are going, what's the matter with you? Why is he limping? And what it does is it gives people the permission to set it aside. So what's your credibility? When you walk out there, what's your credibility? And what I would tell you is own where you're at. You're there anyway. Right? And people aren't thinking about you, they're thinking about yourself, about themselves. So just own where you're at. So your credibility comes from understanding why they should listen to you. So get at it. People are going to be interested in you before they listen to the content of what you have to say. And the last thing I wrote down is pathos, emotion. If they don't feel what you're presenting, they won't change. And if your goal is to give a talk to help people change, then they have to feel. They have to feel it. And they feel it by stories and by emotion. So Catherine expressed emotion, didn't she? She didn't tell a story, she expressed emotions. And it was the emotion everyone bought into. And she wasn't selling. What's ironic about it, she wasn't selling, right? She wasn't selling that story. But everyone got to experience that story. So you're all, each and every one of you are normal. You don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to do it somebody else's way. There are techniques that we all have to learn to use. There's stage presence techniques where you can use. All those things matter. But what matters most is getting started. And you're all getting started. I'm proud of each one of you for getting started. And here's the great news. You never have to start again. Once you start, you never have to start again. So that would be my input to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, this concludes our group today. Thank you so much, Lloyd. We don't have our $100,000 bar, but I owe you one.
I appreciate y'all having me here. It's valuable for me.
Oh, it's just so fantastic. And again, Lloyd holds the First Friday group where you can get more of what you saw today. Just a lot of love, a lot of encouragement, a lot of smart advice and direction. So thank you so much, and head over there if you want more of it. Next time, 2 weeks from now, we'll see.